I'm so lucky to be in your presence, Cha-Cha Acoustic.
As am I.
I've come to you in a time of great peril in very limited time.
Sit down and have a glass of wine. Enjoy my many cheeses, grapes, and the rest of this amazing charcuterie board.
I really can't stay long. Time is of the essence.
But time is the wisest of counselors.
Time waits for no one.
Patience is a virtue.
Lost time is never found again.
Sit down, please. I'm losing my patience.
A virtue in short supply, I see.
So what brings you to me today?
My husband is, I believe, about to make a grave mistake.
He has forgotten your anniversary again, I see.
No, I mean, yes, but that's not why I came today.
I'm already losing interest. Please get to the point. My time is very limited.
I think he's about to buy the wrong amplifier.
What? My God, woman! Why didn't you say something earlier?
Well, it all started when he learned about SINAD.
You can't spell SINAD without sin.
Very scientific of you to point out the obvious. But the fact is, he wants the cleanest sounding amplifier possible and thinks what you picked out for him isn't the cleanest. He wants the cleanest amplifier.
Why can't men simply cheat on their wives rather than their equipment?
Why can men simply not cheat?
Now, if I remember correctly, I picked out 2 Outlaw 2220 monoblocks amps for him because he had a budget of under $1,000. Now, I'm not saying there aren't better amps out there, but they would cost quite a bit more, and I highly doubt he could hear the difference even with a better measuring amp.
He's saying that's not true. That the amplifier he's looking at has a SINAD of over 120 dB. In fact, it's the same price as the 2 Outlaws you picked out for him, but it has a 30 plus dB SINAD advantage. He's very upset, and I don't think he ever wants to talk to you again.
You've done it. I've done it. Actually, I haven't done it. I'm just saying that to make you feel better. You look at measurements, and in a world where you cannot simply listen to equipment before you buy it, you buy what you say is the best measuring equipment. Sound unheard.
He could be pushing the buy button right now, or even 20 minutes ago when you told me to sit down when time wasn't of the essence, you said.
What is time, Karen? I doubt this fantastic glass of Josh 2020 vintage Cabernet Sauvignon cares anything about time. But to your point, I think I know what amplifier has got his panties in a bunch. The Topping LA90 Discrete.
That's it. He wouldn't shut up last night about putting more topping. I thought he was talking about his whipped cream on his pie. But he wanted to be discreet about it. It's the Topping Discrete, yes. But why didn't you recommend it?
The topping won't work for your husband. In fact, it won't be as clean as the Outlaw 2220 some of the time.
All of this stuff is so confusing.
There is so much to know about stereo equipment that I tell my clients not to think critically at all. They should simply seek my advice. As you can see with Karen's husband, he was given a little bit of knowledge and now is on the precipice of making a major equipment mistake. Yes, it certainly is confusing. Just tell your husband he won't like the topping.
He won't like it? Why?
Because he's running the ELAC Unify reference UBR62 speakers.
And they won't sound good with a cleaner amplifier?
Pretty much any amp with a SINAD greater than 85, notwithstanding issues with resistance, affecting frequency response, or crosstalk, as a rule of thumb, Anything greater than 85 dB will be audibly transparent from one amp to another. The topping isn't cleaner than the Outlaw 2220, as the Outlaw stays close to 90 dB all the way to 200 watts. The LA90 now, it hits those amazing SINAD numbers at 120 dB, which is fantastic, but it does so at 41 watts and under into an 8 ohm load. About 60 watts, I'd estimate, into a 6 ohm load. Then the distortion starts to rise. The ELAC he uses are 85 dB sensitive. And they're 6 ohm speakers. He has them at the other end, if I remember correctly, of your living room, about 4 meters away. And he really likes to crank them sometimes, especially when he's not even in the room, he's back in the kitchen, far more than 4 meters away. For songs that he likes to listen to at around 90 dB, he's going to need at least 100 watts or more to power those ELACs. Let's look at these numbers graphed against one another. And do you know what happens when you pair a speaker with an amplifier that continuously goes into clipping?
They sound bad.
That and this.
Oh my God! I didn't know a speaker could blow up by having an amplifier with too little power on it. I always thought too much power was the problem.
The number of commoners who believe putting a 200 watt amp on a speaker rated at 100 watts as more damaging than putting a 30 watt amp on that same 100 watt rated speaker is stunning. It's why my business is booming. You can see that starting around 45 watts into an 8 ohm load, I'd estimate about 65 watts again into a 6 ohm load. The Outlaw is a cleaner amp than the topping. On top of that, it has loads of power beyond the topping. It can not only drive those ELACs, it can drive any speaker he ever buys without clipping. The Outlaw literally stays at around 90 dB SINAD until 200 watts into 8 ohms and a stunning 250 watts into 6 ohms.
So the topping is garbage.
Whoa, hold your tongue, Karen. The topping is not garbage. The topping can run many speakers and many setups, especially if you don't mind that giant brick that has to go somewhere, because they save money by not building in a power supply. And as long as you keep that power in the low distortion range, these toppings are fantastic amplifiers. But when we look closer, the argument that the topping is a world ahead of the Outlaw falls apart pretty fast in a real-world situation. The Outlaw is cleaner from about 45 watts on up, 8 ohms. In your husband's situation, any listening level above 87 dB, and the Outlaw wins. On top of that, sheer capability of going to around 250 watts into 6 ohms puts the Outlaw light years, in my opinion, ahead of the topping.
Why would anyone want to listen to music that loud?
For many people, a good toe-tapping tune like Diane Bish's Zephyrs is the perfect time to really crank the volume for a few minutes. Not only would Law have the cleaner sound when he wants loads of power, but I would argue under low volume situations, there won't be any noticeable difference between the two amplifiers. And at higher volumes, not only will the Outlaw not distort, but it won't damage his speakers.
So who would want the topping if the Outlaws cost the same, have a built-in power supply, sound the same at low power levels, yet have so much extra power to give?
If you have more sensitive speakers or sit closer to them or have space issues, the Topping LA90 might be a better choice, especially since it's an integrated amp with 3 balanced inputs.
I can't thank you enough, Cha-Cha Acoustic.
$400 will be thank you enough. My pricing? Oh, yes. My pricing is very simple. Look at Karen, for example. I take 50% of how much, in this case, I saved her. I saved her husband $800 from buying another amp. My commission is $400. Pricing for, oh yes, well, when they buy something, my pricing is exactly the same and very simple. Whatever you buy, whatever I recommend and you keep, I keep 50% of the cost of that product. In reality, my customers are saving thousands of dollars because when I pick something out for them, it is there for the rest of their life. They're not churning through equipment like most of you are. And before we leave, remember, I'm here for you, not me.